Today, we're honing in on Gabor Maté. I always loved his name. Many people pronounce it differently, but the dude is filled with wisdom. And I thought this one was extra relevant considering some of the things we've talked about, even of late on the Medicine Podcast.
Yeah. Let's go. I want to hear it.
Always marry somebody that's going to trigger for you every unhappiness that you ever had in your childhood. So when we find somebody to be in a relationship with, it happens on two levels. One level is, I find them attractive, they're humorous, they're fun to be with. Underneath it, there's a looking for the love that we never got in the first place. So for example, why do so many women, specifically, who were abused in childhood, end up with abusive men? Which they do, repeatedly. And you think, what's wrong with them? Well, there's nothing wrong with them. What's wrong is, whose love did they most want when they were kids? So unconsciously, they'll be drawn towards men who've got that abusive potential. So relationships very much a matter of growing up together, if that can happen. But I guarantee you, when you marry somebody, you're going to find both your dreams and your worst nightmare.
That's profound, that we're all seeking, subconsciously, we're seeking our parents' dysfunction.
Yeah, because that's where we wanted the love.
Wow. Yeah, that hits.
It hits. I think people are probably aware, if you spent, even 2 minutes in relationship work, that you unconsciously manifest or are attracted to a partner where there's like a wound that you might be thinking you can heal, even on a subconscious level. And so he referenced why do women who with abusive fathers end up marrying an abusive husband, and that's kind of a standard category out there, but there's real depth in that pattern. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the abuser and the attraction of the abuser. It can be, for men, why are you attracted to someone who's going to be your mommy? Someone who's going to, wipe your ass and take care of all the little things in your life, because you are trying to still, in some way, shape, or form, heal or connect with mom in some way. And the reason I thought this was an interesting clip to talk about on the show a little bit is because we've had questions that I think this response from Gabor Maté applies to. Questions like, how do I know when to break up with someone or push through a challenge? Or even questions like, how do I know they're the one? And I think that this is an important thing to consider, because he kind of separates these two components of real deep relationship work or relationship components. One is are they attractive? Do they make you laugh? You generally get along, have fun together. Compatibility. But then there's like, what do they trigger in you?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times where you move through the honeymoon phase, the novelty phase of a relationship, where things seem like they're grooving along pretty well. And you get to this impasse where they're actually triggering you somehow. I bet if you looked even further, it would be something pertaining to your childhood. You don't have to have the most brutal childhood ever.
Right, yeah. It can be small things.
To have your partner trigger something in you that pertains to an unresolved issue from growing up.
It can be one instance, one memory of one specific incident in your childhood. It doesn't even have to be like trauma or abuse. It could be like, I remember in 4th grade when I did this thing and everybody laughed in the class and I felt stupid. It can be like literally one incident.
Right.
That's being, like scratched a little bit.
Totally. And using the disclaimer of, if you're in an abusive relationship, by all means, get the hell out of there. You don't need to be like, I must work through this.
Yeah, right.
Because this is where the work is in this person beating me to death or whatever.
No.
But I do think that when that feeling comes up, where you're like, oh my God, everything they're doing now, which used to, I was obsessed with this person for months or even for years. Now everything they do is repulsive to me. Like, sit in that for a while. Really spend some time meditating in that. Because there's a good chance it actually has something to do with an unhealed, unaddressed wound. That if you decide to end the relationship and move on to another, you are likely setting yourself up for the same moment, the same scenario. I've talked about this on the show before, but my dad put it to me one time so beautifully. Props to Randog, where he just said, you know, I was telling him about you and I potentially getting back together and some of the concerns that I had, some of the concerns that he had. And he was just like, son, at the end of the day, you're going to have to figure out who you want to work through your shit with. And that's, you know, an important question in relationships because you're never going to avoid the shit. You're never going to avoid your shit that you need to work through. The question is, who do you trust? Who can hold the space for you to actually massage that knot in your relationship quad out, right?
And who is volunteering to work through the shit with you? Yeah. It's one thing if the person is like, no, not me. But, you know, in our instance, in our situation, I was like, I'm here. I want to do this with you. I want to figure this out. I want to heal together. And so that's a huge, you know, thing to think about too. But I think, you know, this is the lesson here from this video is just having awareness.
Yes.
Just having awareness that we all have this tendency. If you're a human, again, you don't have to have like an abusive or very traumatic childhood. It could be just a very small thing that you're unaware of and your partner is reigniting in you. And I think the mistake, like you so beautifully put, I think the mistake that a lot of people make is like they get that uncomfortable situation and they think that it's just like, well, this just isn't my person. They're triggering me in this way. And I don't want to ask them to change. And this is who I am. So like, you know, and then they go on to recreate that pattern, whatever it is. And, you know, maybe this isn't your person, but it's in your best interest to at least ask yourself what disappointment or trauma or whatever trauma is definitely like an overused word, I think, right now. But like, what even disappointment from childhood? What lack of love did I feel in my childhood that this person is in this moment inviting me to heal or inviting me to look at least? Right. And if you ask that and you get to the realization that this still isn't my person, great, whatever. But at least you're having the awareness. At least you are, you know, conscious to this pattern that could very easily go, you know, unconscious.
Classic example from a dude's perspective is you have a mom who takes care of a lot of things for you. And you even witnessed like your mom has never been liberated into her own individuality because she's so much a mom and taking care of every little thing. So you got into the world and you say, I love my mom, but I'm really not going to marry my mom because my mom, you know, is like at home mom only. There's no like individuation and this liberation from the house. And they go out and they marry somebody, and 2 or 3 years down the road, they wonder why the sexual chemistry is off. They're like, why does she mother me? But if they maybe sat in it for a while, they potentially could have subconsciously groomed their partner into being a mother for them because that is their relationship to femininity.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be someone who stays at home with the kids. It can be someone in, you know, could be at a C-level corporation, you know, leadership seat or something. And she's used to being in control, and she's attracted a man that wants to be controlled or wants to be, you know, kind of like mommied a little bit.
John Wineland talked about this, some of the first podcast interviews I ever heard him talk about, where he's like, we will all subconsciously groom our partners to be the parent of the opposite sex so that we can potentially heal that wound, or just out of the sheer fact that that's familiarity to us. And so again, like you said, this is a segment about awareness, because I think having this in your tool belt as you come across relationship challenge and triggers is, especially if it's the both of you that have that in your tool belt, that is freaking gold. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.